Fellas and Beans.
Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws NBA podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
TV, we have breaking news, and maybe not necessarily today, but insane news of the NBA offseason. It was only right that we hopped on a podcast as soon as we possibly could. We got a lot to get into today, my man.
Oh man, yes, we this is the biggest news that we've got all NBA offseason, and we're gonna do a deep dive into this trade in a very very soon into this podcast. But of course, we're gonna have a lot of stuff we're gonna also talk about in this podcast. We're gonna start our season preview. We're gonna be doing a 21 question sort of format. We're gonna go through some questions, try to answer them as we keep moving along to the NBA season. We're 4 weeks away, Jay. We are 4 weeks away until the start. So we're going to start ramping it up here. We're going to try to get through all these questions and see how much we're going to be able to preview this NBA season. Of course, we're going to end up with the draft as well. And of course, we have the quiz at the end. But yeah, it's going to be another great episode. And we're going to get into that real quickly. But before we get into it, we do have to plug our socials. Make sure you follow our individual accounts at TV on Basketball, at the Knockdown J. Those links can be found in the description. And in terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, make sure you're following us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. We are now into the 2021 season of the NBA 2K universe. 18 seasons later, we are almost near the end. Again, it's being uploaded daily. We should be finishing in the next week or so. So make sure you follow along for the remainder of this series if you want to kind of see how everything transpires out. It's been a really good series so far. Besides that, if you're on YouTube, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That would be highly, highly appreciated. And if you're supporting on any of the podcast networks, Spotify or Apple, make sure you leave a review, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Jay, might be the biggest news we've talked about the entire series, maybe too. Who knows?
Yeah, man, I'm not going to lie. Of a lot of the things that we've covered on the Hit Your Free Throws podcast so far, this might have arguably like the most ramifications, honestly.
100%. And we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to get into it because the Damian Lillard saga has come to an end. This started all the way back in June, July, when he requested the trade out of Portland. And we've been waiting and waiting. It's been kind of dormant for a good chunk of this NBA offseason, but it finally happened. And Damian Lillard is being paired up with Giannis Antetokounmpo in the Milwaukee Bucks jersey, Jay. The Milwaukee Bucks jersey. But of course, there's other stuff to the trade. The Blazers gone return Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton. So the Suns didn't get involved in this mix. They got Tumani Camara, the rookie. Mm-hmm. Then you got a 2029 unprotected first-round pick and a 2028 and 2030 pick swap from the Milwaukee Bucks. The Suns get in return Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nazir Little, and Keon Johnson. I mean, Jay, blockbuster trade, biggest trade news of the summer. Your initial thoughts?
Dude, I was in class when this happened, in the middle of a group assignment. And I told my whole group that I had an emergency. And I stepped away to make sure I got an understanding of not only was this trade real, right?
Yeah.
But then what exactly was in the trade? TV, I got to be honest. NBA executives are getting a lot better at making trades that look even on paper.
Yeah.
This might be one of those trades that when you think about the circumstances for the Portland Trail Blazers and the fact that you're not going to get equal value for Damian Lillard, we know what kind of player he is. But when you think about what you can get in respects to what logically should be acquired in a Damian Lillard trade, you can make the argument that this is one of the better acquisitions they could have gotten easily. It's much better than the Miami Heat offer. We know that for sure. Yeah. So, and I think it's also better than the James Harden rumor thing that was going around where they would do a him for James Harden swap where James Harden is an expiring contract and all that stuff like that. This is much better than those. And shout out to the Suns as well, them getting involved in making this happen because they're the guys that really equalize this whole thing, they get a little bit better in their own way through this trade too. So the thing was that, yeah, Damian Lillard is going to be the headliner of this story, but I don't think it should be swept under the rug that all of these teams got a little bit of something that makes their team better in one way or another in this trade. And that's huge considering that, like you mentioned beforehand, a couple months ago, the Miami Heat offer was the only one that seemed like it was even remotely worth doing. And it was easily a pennies on the dollar type of acquisition, and we all knew it.
Yeah. Please check on your local Miami Heat fan, guys. They might be crying in a fountain. They might be they're going through it. They are going through it. They just lost out. I mean, they went to a potentially all-time great offseason to probably the worst offseason in the last couple of years for the Miami Heat. But we're not talking about that. Let's get into this trade. Bro, I was in the middle of running, I'm a kind of like a teacher sort of person at like the place I work at, and I was in the middle of facilitating a class, and I got this notification, and not gonna lie, I lost my entire train of thought. I was so discombobulated, I had to regroup myself because of how crazy this trade was. Because we got probably, on paper, the best duo in basketball together, Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo on the same team. We'll go through each of the teams and see like how this really does affect them. But we got to start with the Milwaukee Bucks. It sucks that they lost Jrue Holiday. It really does. He was a key part to that 2021 NBA championship. But the same way they did Eric Bledsoe when they acquired Jrue Holiday is basically the same thing that they did to Jrue Holiday, unfortunately for him. But I said this in yesterday's quick video and my initial thoughts, and I'm going to say it here. When you have a chance to get a top 3 point guard in the league, basically a top 10 player in the league, it sucks you're going to have to give up the best perimeter defending guard in the league. But if you have a chance to get Damian Lillard, you get it. Damian Lillard just solves umpty-million problems that the Bucks had on the offensive end. It's no longer just Giannis run downhill, find the shooters around you. It's not that anymore. It's not Chris Middleton. Let's give you the ball in the end of the fourth quarter and overtime. And to be fair, he's been pretty solid at that the last couple of years. It's no longer that. It's not just Chris Middleton as an option on the perimeter anymore. Damian Lillard stretches out defenses to the point where you can't double off Giannis now. Before it used to be you could double Giannis, get to the paint, and you would dare the other people to shoot. Even though they were solid, you'd rather that than Giannis go to the rim. You can't do that with Dame. Because if you leave, we know what Dame range is. It's 40 feet from the freaking basket. He does so much for that team, spaces the floor. Him and Giannis pick and roll is going to be absolutely crazy. And that just takes the offense to a whole other level. They were middle of the pack the last couple of years. And that's because they were so limited on that end because of Giannis' skill set, because of Chris Middleton's injuries. Damian Lillard just ratifies that instantly. And this acquisition, getting this type of player, after Giannis went publicly and said, I'm committed to winning a championship, the Bucks need to show him that they're committed. Now, this is a commitment and a half trying to get Damian Lillard onto this team. And I think it's just the absolute perfect piece for this team. And Vegas has them as the title favorites. It makes sense to me. This team might take a step back defensively, but their offense is just a whole new level now. I think this is an excellent trade for the Milwaukee Bucks. And for Damian Lillard, he said in the past he's wanted to play with Giannis Antetokounmpo. We finally get to see it. I can't wait till they're on the court, Jay.
Yeah, I think the main thing that you have to factor in is that, yes, they may take some kind of step back in terms of defensively, but I think you have to make a really strong argument for what Damian Lillard brings offensively to make up for that. Jrue Holiday is arguably, or not even arguably, he's easily their worst three-point shooter in terms of perimeter outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo on the roster the last 2 to 3 seasons. He's a guy that's really struggled specifically in the postseason in terms of being an offensive initiator, something that we know Damian Lillard rises to the occasion when the postseason comes, which is very big. The injuries to Chris Middleton over time, we've always seen the Chris Middleton is Batman because and Giannis is the Robin, right? Or there's this weird dichotomy between which one is the leader, not due to talent, but due to who can you play the ball through at the end of games. Damian Lillard can be a more definitive bridge between Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo in terms of guys that you can put the ball in their hands at the end of games and win close matchups. The other thing that's super important is a lot of people talked about Miami being a perfect team for Damian Lillard in terms of the structure because you've got these perimeter defenders like Jimmy Butler, and you're able to have a guy on a back line like Bam Adebayo, and just the defensive prowess that the Miami Heat play with. Well, the Milwaukee Bucks are no slouch on that department either. And you could make an argument that defensively, they have even better personnel around Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Brook Lopez, who was in the running for DPOY last year. Chris Middleton, when healthy, is still one of the better perimeter defenders. They've got a lot to work with where you can make the argument that aside from Miami, I think even better than Miami, this is a better overall situation for Damian Lillard in terms of maximizing his offensive skill sets and making up for his defensive weaknesses. This is literally the perfect situation. If you're talking about off the court enjoyments like the weather and different things like that, okay, Miami is the perfect bridge of the two things. But if we're talking about the perfect chance to get a championship, this is the kind of place that Damian Lillard should have been requesting to go to in the first place. And I think that this is the best landing spot for him. TV, I think something else that's super important to throw out. This team gets really expensive, but we've been hearing it for the better part of the last month now. Giannis Antetokounmpo, for the second time, has told the Milwaukee Bucks front office, I feel like we're not doing enough in order to be able to be a championship contender on a season in, season out basis. What happened last time they said that, TV? They went out and got Drew Holiday, and not too much longer, they hoisted up the Larry O'Brien trophy because they were willing to make the move that meant that it was going to put them in the right position to win a championship. And they were successful. And Giannis stuck around, and the Miami Heat rumors and the Golden State rumors, they died down. The Dallas Mavericks rumors, they died down. And I think that the Milwaukee Bucks, once again, stood their ground and said, Giannis, you think we're not willing to spend? You think we're not willing to do what it takes in order to make us a championship caliber team? Hold my beer real quick. And once again, they step up and they arguably make yet another significant upgrade that might even be bigger than the Drew Holiday acquisition. And remember, Drew Holiday was thinking about potentially retiring after this season. Remember? He's supposed to become an unrestricted free agent. There was conversation around him not playing basketball anymore. You have Chris Middleton locked up long term. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo for at least another season, or I think another 2 seasons if you count this one. You have Brook Lopez now signed for a little bit longer term. And you know Damian Lillard is locked up for at least the next 5 seasons, right? In terms of at least being under contract control. So now, yes, this team is older, but this team is set in stone for at least the next 2 to 3 years. Now it's time to see what they can do with it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I like the point you brought up about like him doing this before the Drew Holiday trade and him doing this again and getting Damian Lillard. Both of these times he was eligible for an extension that the Milwaukee Bucks felt the pressure to kind of make the team, to improve the team in order to extend, like, to keep him along. Because I think it was a tweet, I forgot who was it by, but they said basically what this trade does, Milwaukee, is not only get Damian Lillard and taking him away from Miami, but this takes away the possibility of Giannis wanting to leave and Miami wanting to go for him as well. So they killed 2 birds with 1 stone with this trade. With this trade as well, this probably means you secure the extension of Giannis Antetokounmpo, which is a whole other part of this deal that people aren't talking about, but which is a massive W for them. So bring in Damian Lillard, like we both mentioned, the absolute perfect fit for this team. It's not Miami, and I think to a certain extent, I'm not sure if like how you feel about this. Maybe there was like a certain level of maybe not wanting to negotiate with Miami if you're the Milwaukee Bucks because of the whole like being like Damian Lillard trying to force his way over there. The Miami Heat fans saying, oh, you know, they're being all nonchalant, being, you know what, we can just give you, you know, these scraps, and you have to take it because Damian Lillard wants to be here. They found a way around it. They found a way to get a trade that can help, that's going to be helping them, that the Trailblazers are going to be helping them for the future. And they can still flip Drew Holiday, but they got a better deal than they probably would have gotten with Miami. So,
Right.
it's a good deal for them. We'll probably go to them next, but again, this is just such a big time deal for the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm excited, super excited to see them on the court very, very soon. Let's move on. I guess it's a good time to go into the Blazers package. Do you feel like this is probably the best one available? I know there was one that included my Toronto Raptors. Do you think that the Blazers ultimately made the right decision?
I think this is huge. I think this is huge for the Blazers because you get a franchise caliber big man and DeAndre Ayton who clearly needed a change in scenery. We understood that. A lot of people were worried about what was the ability of Frank Vogel, who we know has a history of being able to really maximize their big men. A team's big man, there was always the possibility of what could Frank Vogel do with a specimen like DeAndre Ayton physically, right? But there's always the background question of, is DeAndre Ayton already mentally checked out based off of some of the things that he's been through with this Phoenix organization? This gives him a perfect opportunity. You have to also think about it from this perspective. Moving on from DeAndre Ayton not only was expected because of the fact that he's a guy that's been brought up in trade rumors pretty frequently over the last 2 seasons, but you have to think about what his value is on this team, right? DeAndre Ayton is a guy that needs to be able to get 7, 8, 9, 10 post touches per game in order to really get into his flow offensively. Otherwise, he's a guy who can drift in and out of a game. He wasn't going to get that in Phoenix. He wasn't getting that with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul on the team. Now you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal as high usage players. That only bumps DeAndre Ayton's usage even further down the line on the pecking order, which makes it where his overall skill set diminishes more and more. And DeAndre Ayton is a very big time defender. We saw 2 or 3 seasons ago that he was probably the most effective defender against Nikola Jokic outside of maybe Anthony Davis. But when you're asking DeAndre Ayton as a former number 1 overall pick to strictly be a big-time defensive center, you are minimizing the overall value he can provide. And at the same time, you are also slowly but surely disengaging him from your team. So we saw that the trade was coming. This is a perfect opportunity for the Portland Trailblazers. Name the man on the Portland Trailblazers right now. We know Scoot Henderson is the reigning number 2 overall pick, right? Yeah. We know that Shaedon Sharpe is the darling of the draft 2 seasons ago, where he was taken 7th overall and really showed us some promise. We know that Anthony Simons, I'm telling you, he's been knocking on the door of being like an all-star caliber player for the last 2 seasons now, right? Super efficient guy who's just kind of like been playing behind Damian Lillard. But DeAndre Ayton comes in and he can demand 7 to 10 touches per game. And I think a rookie like Scoot Henderson can be able to get a lot of easy baskets, a lot of easy assists playing in a pick and roll next to a big man like DeAndre Ayton. Drew Holiday in this pickup is perfect because there's 2 ways that it works. He can either become a trade asset at the trade deadline, or even now, or he's a perfect mentor for even half a season in terms of professionalism, being a franchise caliber player, and being a big time two-way point guard in this league for both Scoot Henderson. I would argue Shaedon Sharpe as well, despite the fact that I don't think he's going to play point guard for this team, and even Anthony Simons. It's a perfect funnel system. It's like when you use the mentor feature on NBA 2K, right? Just passing before Drew Holiday decides to call it quits. So before we trade Drew Holiday away, maybe we could just give him a couple of badges to pass over to the youngins before they really grow into their own. You know what I mean? So it's a perfect opportunity where either they go through a bit of a mentorship process at the guard position, and you've got a lot of high upside at the guard spot that can really learn a ton on a professionalism and from an overall being an NBA pro perspective from a Drew Holiday. But then even if you don't want to go the mentorship route, you have the perfect trade asset in Drew Holiday, who is automatically going to be highly coveted by teams that are legitimately in the championship picture. I think this gives them a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, 100%. I do, and I think we both agree with this. It's 100% better than the Miami package they're going to get. Whether it's better than the Toronto package, which I believe was going to be Grady Dick, OG Anunoby, and I believe like 2 unprotected first round picks. Yeah, that's up for discussion. That could be up to depending on the person how they.
Well, what's your argument for Toronto's being better? Because I think the only worry that I think my biggest worry with Toronto is the fact that OG Anunoby is due to be a free agent this summer. So unless you know that he's going to re-sign with your team, there is that unlikely case. With Drew Holiday, if he comes off your books, whether it's trading him as an asset or him making it through the entire season and coming off your books as an unrestricted free agent, you know that he's not going to be part of the long-term plans for this team regardless. So that's just money that comes off the books. For OG Anunoby, if you're attaining him with hopes that you're going to retain him in the summer. Otherwise, it significantly hurts the trade package. So I think that's a big worry.
That is a big worry for sure. But I think like from like all reports beforehand, the Blazers really want to get Grady Dick to like pair next to like Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons as well. So I think potentially if you want to go with the like getting players that's going to be with you long term. Sure, they could re-sign OG. Yes, they have like Grady Dick for the next 4 years. For like a young talent standpoint, I think that might have been a better trade. But the way we see Drew Holiday as a way that he could be a mentor, the way that he could be, a good trade asset maybe going down the line as well. Maybe you can get maybe just as much as equal value. Who knows? But either way, again, it's up to interpretation. I think that the Raptor package would have been better for the Blazers, but I don't think they could be mad with this Drew Holiday package as well. And I think like we mentioned, I mean either way. Also, I want to mention even if like the Raptors were involved in the trade, I still think DeAndre Ayton was going to end up going to the Blazers anyway because of the whatever 3-team trade or whatever is going to happen. But at the end of the day, I think that could have gone younger, but they brought in Drew Holiday, which can be flipped for more assets. So I would say that this trade for them is still incomplete because they could still get more out of the assets that they got. But I still think it's a good trade nonetheless for them. The fact that the Bucks had to give only 2 pick swaps in the first round pick in this day and age too, really good for them, and at least the Suns the Blazers get some draft capital. Before we move on to the next topic, let's talk about the Suns' return here. Like I mentioned, Yusuf Nurkic, Nazir Little, and Keon Johnson come over from the Portland Trail Blazers. And Grayson Allen comes over from the Milwaukee Bucks. So Jay, for the Suns, for DeAndre Ayton, is this a decent enough package for you?
I think this is good. I think at the end of the day, the biggest criticism for the Phoenix Suns is that they don't have depth. And I think even though they had a really strong offseason where they were able to bring in guys like Eric Gordon, Yuta Watanabe, they got Caleb Bates Diop, there were certain guys that they were able to pick up. Bol, I think was another name that came up. Like they were able to make a really strong set of additions over the summer. But I think at the end of the day, you want to be able to pick a handful of guys who might be able to play in a real 9-man rotation for you during the postseason. So Grayson Allen, I think, is somebody who's capable of that. A competitive guy on defense, knockdown sniper of a shooter. Yusuf Nurkic, he's not the defender that DeAndre Ayton is, but I think that you still need to be able to have a strong big man in the center. Being able to move off of DeAndre Ayton and still at least get a competent center in the trade, that's big for them. I think that is big, even if it is a step down defensively. I think that could still be pretty major overall. And then you have a guy who's a physical perimeter defender, Nasir Little. That's big for him because he's going to be in an environment where I think his defense matters more on a team like this as opposed to him being a big-time defender on a Portland Trailblazers team where it still kind of doesn't really matter all that much, and it just kind of makes him more so underrated. Him and Keon Johnson are the 2 young bucks, no pun intended here, but they're the 2 young guys in this roster, which is big, again, for a Phoenix Suns team that kind of still needs to keep some youth on the roster. Despite how old they've kind of gotten overnight in terms of some of the acquisitions they've made, they have to be able to keep and develop young talent, whether that's to be able to turn them into trade assets or simply turn them into guys that are on the roster for the long haul that they can develop into guys that they can use for some of these potential championship runs. So it might not be a great talent for talent swap, but we knew DeAndre Ayton was out the door either way. So being able to get a big man and some young talent and a player in Grayson Allen who could be a really big part of your playoff rotation, I don't think you can knock them and what they did as a member of this trade when you think about their depth still being their biggest question, even after the kind of offseason they had.
I mean, am I the biggest fan of it? No. I mean, if this was like pre-injury, I mean, we have to remember, Jusuf Nurkic before the broken leg injury was low-key one of the most underrated big men defenders in the league. Mm-hmm. So him before the injury was actually a pretty damn good defender. Ever since then, he's kind of had a drop off. But if they can get even like a good fraction of what Nurkic was before the injury, then that's a pretty big deal for the Phoenix Suns. But I just can't help but think, like, I don't of course I don't have the trade packages. I don't know what's going on in the front office. But was there anything better than this? I mean, I feel like was it going to get much better than this? Especially for someone like DeAndre Ayton, a 24, 25-year-old. I mean, he fits perfectly with the Trailblazers' like future, the timeline of them. He fits absolutely perfectly. For a former number 1 overall pick, is this the best you can get? Not even a little bit of draft compensation? Like, you got just a good bunch of role players. And mind you, these guys are going to play, which is massive for the Suns. These guys are actually going to play meaningful minutes on your basketball team. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like there could be they could have got something more for DeAndre Ayton. Maybe we're underestimating his value. I know Suns fans were just happy to see him go, and which is like kind of unfair to him as well. I think that's kind of like unfair to his whole situation. But I don't know. I just feel like that they could have got not maybe talent for talent, but a more steadier hand at the center position. Maybe like the bench depth is completely fine by me, but I think that Jusuf Nurkic might be like a bigger downgrade than most people like to admit. His defense is no longer there. I think that he might be targeted come playoff time as well. So I think that's gonna be really tough under center rotation, especially now they don't have Jock Landale anymore either. So I guess it's good if they got players that can play, which is like at the end of the day, that's what they need. They needed the depth. I just don't think that the DeAndre Ayton trade, that this is all that was on the table. I feel like there's like other stuff that they could have gotten, and I still think that they came away with this solid, but I just think that there's like they're just missing something out of it, and this downgrade per se from Ayton to Nurkic, I think it's gonna prove to be a bit more worrisome than we're leading it on to be.
I mean, we'll never know. So that's kind of the interesting factor about this, is that we'll never really truly be sure about what it is that we'll never truly be sure about what it is that was available that could have been better than this. Maybe some of that stuff will come out, but I think when you factor in, this was one of those situations where I don't think you could genuinely go into the season with Damian Lillard still in the roster, considering the circumstances and considering all the questions around how long he'll be on the team if you're the Trailblazers. And I think you can make a similar argument for DeAndre Ayton in terms of why it was about that time to move on from him as well. So I think when you factor those things in, I think it's too hard to necessarily be picky about the kind of trade package you got. And the focus should be more around, did you get guys who are reliable enough to be able to play within your rotation? I think the answer for them at least was yes.
Yeah, and I agree with that point. I do agree with that point. You got 3 guys here. Keon Johnson is still maybe a little bit of a maybe, even though he could be a pretty solid scorer for them off the bench. You for sure got 3 guys that could be part of your playoff rotation. Whether Nurkic can stay healthy, whether Nazir Little is going to be able to hit enough shots to play big minutes in the playoffs, we'll have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, they got players that can play. They traded away an asset that, like you mentioned before, you weren't maximizing his capabilities. He was unhappy with the organization. They were able to move past that, start fresh. Now they got their 3 main scorers there, no questions asked, and the other guys can fall into place, which I think is a big win for the Suns. I still think they could have got something better in return, but again, we'll never know.
Right.
Any final thoughts on this trade, Jay?
Just still a really insane trade, and obviously there's a lot of ramifications for this. Teams like the Toronto Raptors, the Philadelphia 76ers, obviously the Miami Heat were all teams that were brought up in some capacity for this trade, and that leaves still a lot to question for them. I think Toronto still needs to make a decision on Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. This still leaves those questions there. The Miami Heat, this offseason looks much worse for them because we were saying beforehand, you've lost Max Strus, you've lost Gabe Vincent, Jimmy Butler's another year older, Bam Adebayo is put in a position where, we have to ask, can he truly be the second best player on a championship caliber team? Tyler Hero has been the most aggressive name on the trade block that's not a superstar this entire summer. And there's still even rumors of him being potentially moved in a trade to the Utah Jazz. So there's still a lot for that team to still think about. But I don't think in an offseason where the Miami Heat were let's just talk about what the Miami Heat were in the running for over the last year, right? Donovan Mitchell came up. Bradley Beal has came up. I think Zach LaVine had like a weird little stint where there was a possibility of them trading for him. Kevin Durant obviously made his famous, request that he would want to go to either the Phoenix Suns or the Miami Heat. And now you have Damian Lillard. And none of those 4 to 5 guys that have all been kind of rumored to the Miami Heat in a real aggressive way, mind you, over the last year, not a single one is wearing a Heat jersey right now. So, I mean, this is an all-time fumble by the Miami Heat, and that only makes their regular season hopes that much harder, which means that their chances in the postseason, they get even slimmer now. I mean, you're talking about one of their biggest rivals in the Eastern Conference, and the Milwaukee Bucks of all teams being the team that swooped in and got the job done. That puts them down the pecking order even further because that's the big team. That's the Miami-Milwaukee is one of the most notable series over the last 3 to 4 years. Well, Miami's had the upper hand as of late. It looks like Milwaukee's looking to take back control.
100%. Heat fans, man. Heat fans. This went from potentially, like I mentioned, a really good offseason to probably the worst offseason, like contending with the Raptors for the worst offseason in basketball. You lose Gabe Vincent, you lose Max Strus, and you don't get players to kind of fill out those positions. You don't get Damian Lillard. It's going to be tough to see what they do in the regular season. I know they made it to the finals, but they were an 8 seed for a reason. They did not have the regular season depth to go through it. Now they even have less than that. Kind of tough for them. But we'll have to wait and see how this team turns out. Maybe they have another trade in their bag. But this has basically their entire offseason was hinging on the fact that they were going to get Damian Lillard, and they weren't able to get him, which is highly, highly unfortunate. But man, Tyler Hero survives again. I swear, for the longest time, him, Miles Turner, and until this offseason, John Collins have been in rumors for 3 to 4 years. And they somehow survive everything.
But TV, there's one guy you did not name, debatable on whether or not he's friend of the show, that still lingers as well.
Who?
Julius Randle.
I guess he's always in trade rumors, but I feel like whenever he is part of trade rumors, he just outperforms himself and kind of
survival god. Him and Tobias Harris, survival gods. Survival god. You can't tell me they're not. Him and Tobias Harris are the two guys that, when in doubt, they are going to ball out just enough to stay in their jersey. Stay in their jersey. They're not going anywhere, bro, because they're always just gonna be too good.
Yeah. Turner and Hero, they have to get traded soon. Now that John Collins got traded, I have the belief that these two will eventually get traded. So we'll have to wait and see. It might be another year or two, knowing these situations. But Tyler Hero, he survived, like you mentioned, the Bradley Beal rumors. He survived the Kevin Durant rumors, all of that, and he removed Miami Heat from his Twitter bio, his ex bio, and everything. And now he's back with the team. How is that gonna go? Who knows? Might get ugly, but we'll have to wait and see. Let us know down below what you guys' thoughts on this trade. If you need a safe space for Miami Heat fans, you can put it in our comment section below if you want to discuss your feelings or anything. Raptor fans, there's a small space for you here too, but I don't think they really truly believe they had that. But let us know what you guys think down below on this trade. It was absolutely crazy when it happened, and now I just can't wait to see these two guys on the court. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of the season, though, Jay, like I mentioned at the top, we are 4 weeks away. And we're going to be starting our season previews here. We're going to be sort of doing something called the 21Q series. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be going through 7 questions an episode to try and kind of preview the series. We have some questions here that we're going to go through. We're going to try to answer them and see. And all these questions are going to pertain to this upcoming season. So we're going to try to make our little predictions, try to put our thoughts going into it. And then at the end of it all, at the end of each segment, we're going to be providing one hot take that we're going to kind of die on the hill on and see how that take kind of rests throughout the regular season. So that's going to be extremely interesting as well. But Jay, are you ready to preview NBA basketball? I feel like we've been talking about the offseason for the longest time. Let's actually get into the actual NBA season now.
Yeah, man, it feels good to finally be looking forward for once, man. I feel like we've been looking back for so long. And don't get me wrong, we've got to do what we got to do, but it just feels good to finally start looking at what the season is actually about to shape up to look like, man. So let's get right into it. I'm definitely excited.
All right. Jay, question 1 of 21. What team is under the most pressure this season?
Man. You know, the easy answer after this trade you would feel like was the Bucks, right? But I feel like, jeez, dude. I feel like this Phoenix Sun team has to show us something.
Yeah.
I feel like they have to, like, Devin Booker is number 1 at his position. Yeah. Kevin Durant, still top 3 at his position. Bradley Beal, I think you can make an argument, is still top 7 at his own position, right? They've got all of this money allocated into this team. They're going full in on offense and being just expensive as all knows what, right?
Yeah.
And there's still the lingering question around of if Kevin Durant can get the job done post Golden State. And we've seen a handful of different interesting opportunities for Kevin Durant-led teams, including the Brooklyn Nets. If I had just worn a half size smaller, changes the series against the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, you know, what Zach Lowe of ESPN calls the greatest hypothetical or the best theoretical big 3 of all time. The Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden trifecta, right? We've seen the team that had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons on the roster, right? We've seen a million of different iterations where Kevin Durant post Golden State has had some really, really dope rosters. And you can make an argument that although there's not a ton of depth on the Phoenix team, there is a lot to like about this Phoenix squad. This is one of the best opportunities in a Western Conference that, like, I wouldn't say is like dominated by anybody. Granted, Denver is the team standing on the hypothetical mountain at the moment right now, but there's no juggernaut of a team in the Western Conference standing in anybody's way. And they are, you can make an argument tit for tat, like the most talented team across the board, 1 through 9, 1 through 10. They are maybe like the most talented team in the Western Conference. That could be a debate, but I'm just saying, I think you can make an argument between Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. I think even when you get further down to guys like Eric Gordon, and guys of that nature, you can make a real argument that, like, they have one of the more talented rosters top to bottom in the Western Conference. Gotta get it done.
Yeah, 100%. This Phoenix Suns team, it feels like they finally have like their set lineup now, especially now that they got the DeAndre Ayton situation out the way. Mm-hmm. The question is they're basically like one of the few teams left that really do believe in this big 3 ideology with like trying to just to figure out the rest around them. That's what they basically did. They got Bradley Beal, they got Kevin Durant, and they're like, okay, we have these 3 guys. What now? And this is what they kind of conjured up before the season. I feel like a lot of other teams, they've kind of understood that nowadays the big 3 concept maybe doesn't work as much. A la the Brooklyn Nets. A la, you know, like very like teams in the past. You know, the Warriors team, like the final year with their big 4 whatever when Kevin Durant went down with injury. So maybe it's like they're like one of the few people like teams holding on to it. So I see why you have why you say they have a lot of pressure into the season, but we'll have to wait and see how like all of this like transpires in the court. Like I mentioned like previously, I think they could have got something more for DeAndre Ayton, but if they feel like this is the roster that they're comfortable with going into the season, they're gonna have to produce because they gave up all their assets. We hear James Jones talk about it all the time. We don't care about draft picks. We're trying to win now. Now it's time to translate those words into W's. Now we have to see what the Phoenix Suns are gonna have to do. My team that's under the most pressure, the Miami Heat. You were so adamant on getting Damian Lillard that you didn't make any other moves to your roster. You're like, you know what? We need to save the space. We're not going to bring back Max Strus. We're not going to bring back Gabe Vincent. We're so adamant on getting Damian Lillard that we're just going to let the other things like fall into place. We won't even worry about them. Now you're coming off an NBA Finals. You've made it to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the last 4 years, and now you're completely running it back. You might have a very unhappy soldier there in Tyler Hero coming back into your locker room after doing all that. What are you going to do now? You have a bunch of pressure. Jimmy Butler is not getting any younger. They still need to produce at a high level because Pat Riley thinks that this is the roster to do so. The only key additions that they made, they got Jaime Jaquez Jr. in the draft, and then they also got Josh Richardson. Those are the key pieces that they brought this offseason. Besides that, you can make the argument that they may have had the worst offseason in basketball, probably next to my Toronto Raptors, but we don't want to talk about that. But at the end of the day, this Heat team, they've proven time and time again that they can make deep runs in the playoffs. But when push comes to shove and when they need to maybe make adjustments that you think that they should have been made, earlier on in offseason, they didn't. They stayed pat. They stayed lazy. So now you're going into this okay, you think this is the roster to do so? Show us now. Do you think that none of that you didn't want to be aggressive and trade away some of your young assets to try and get Damian Lillard? Okay, then show us why this roster is it. Because Miami Heat fans, they're almost out with the pitchforks right now, saying why couldn't we get this trade done? You're gonna have pressure from your fans. You're gonna have pressure from within your organization because Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo was expecting to have Damian Lillard at the start of the season, which they don't have. How are they gonna be able to respond? Are they gonna still be able to make a deep playoff run? Wait and see. But they're for me the team that's under the most pressure.
I think Miami is a good one. I think at the end of the day, they're a team that obviously are hanging by a thread after having one of the hardest off seasons possible. This is one of those where it's going to be hard to come back from. We know what their best hand is now because we see that their best hand is also one of the weakest hands of the NBA from a trade package standpoint. And I think this only makes things more difficult. Now, obviously, they're one of the teams that have been brought up already as a Jrue Holiday contender. I will say that there is news that came out that said one of Jrue Holiday's preferred destinations is my Chicago Bulls. I'm just saying that could look pretty good considering the fact that if I can't have Lonzo Ball, having Jrue Holiday is a perfect backup scenario. So, hey, AR, get on that, man, boy. Get on that because I could definitely use Jrue Holiday on my team. That's neither here nor there, man. This is my main thing right now when it comes to the Miami Heat is you swung and missed and swung and missed and swung and missed. And you've always been just good enough to make the postseason and then scare us come playoff time with playoff Jimmy Butler. Is this finally the season where the fairy dust runs out? Is this finally the season where Heat culture isn't enough to make you a dangerous postseason team? Is this the season where the mystique around Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler and the youth that Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and Bam Adebayo bring to the table, it finally hits the ceiling that we've all kind of been waiting on to an extent? I feel like every season TV, I think we joked about this earlier on after the finals was over. I feel like every season we go into a regular season and say, man, the Heat really don't look that good on paper.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the Heat are a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. They'll be lucky to make it in through the play-in tournament. And every season, they build off all the negativity, they build off all of the doubt, and they tend to outperform. Whether they're good in the regular season or not, they tend to be just good enough to make the postseason, and then they make us all eat our words. And this is the first season that I feel like in a long time where I can look at it and genuinely say, I think that the luck is finally ran out. I think it's time to see if those words are true. But I think this is the best representation possible. That I think the luck for the Miami Heat is finally gonna come to an end.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
no hate. I'm just saying.
No hate. Yeah, for sure. We always feel like this is going to happen, but also Miami always just surprises in the playoffs anyway. But we're going to have to see that on the court before we make our judgments. But yeah, the Miami Heat, they're under a lot of pressure because they definitely need to make some moves. They did make them, and now they're trying to run it back with this roster. Let's see what the results are from that. Jay, the next question. Okay. Now that Damian Lillard is off the board, who is the biggest star that will be dumped this season?
Oh, man. Obviously, James Harden is still the one that's lingering out the most.
Yes.
But that feels too obvious. So I'm going to go with the biggest wild card I think that's still available. TV, I still think there's a lot of merit to the idea of the Minnesota Timberwolves moving off of Karl Anthony Towns.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this team, Anthony Edwards is now, the man easily. The FIBA World Cup only has further solidified that the Minnesota Timberwolves need to and should be leaning in favor of Anthony Edwards as the number one option on this team. I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves will be able to give it a couple of weeks or so in terms of being able to see a fully healthy roster with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert next to each other. Because if you remember, last season, they didn't even start the season out playing next to each other because Karl Anthony Towns missed the first couple of weeks first couple of games due to being sick or something like that, I believe.
Yeah.
And then obviously the injury took him down for a significant portion of the season as well. I think there's also some merit to the fact that now Mike Conley is on this team as a guy who can be a point guard that kind of stirs the drink at the point guard position for them. There's a lot to like about this Minnesota team, but there's a lot to worry about when you factor in how expensive this roster is, right? Because they also re-upped on Naz Reid this summer as well. This roster is very expensive, and it's going to become so expensive that at some point they're going to have to move off of one of their high salary guys. Rudy Gobert is he's a commodity that's not got a lot of value right now. And we know that Anthony Edwards is the franchise. That kind of leaves Karl Anthony Towns as the odd man out. Now, there's some things they can do to maybe still keep him on the roster, but financially speaking, there isn't much flexibility that leaves a potential, like a real mendable way to keep Karl Anthony Towns on this roster long term, which means that he has borrowed time.
Yes.
So they kind of either are going to deal him soon, or they are going to need to be a legitimate championship contender even sooner. Otherwise, we know what's going to happen.
100%. The thing is, we know that Anthony Edwards is a guy, and they're going to continue to build around him, and they gave up way too much to give up on the Rudy Gobert experiment already. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it just comes down to Cat. It comes down to Cat having to be traded at some point, whether it's this year or maybe next offseason. But I feel like he's kind of the odd man out, and I don't want to say that he's like a lower tier player. I mean, we talked about in the past. I believe that he is still a top 5 center. He could be a really good 25 and 12 sort of person in the right system. I just don't think it could be in Minnesota any longer. So yeah, he probably is going to be the biggest team trade right now. Whether it happens this season or next, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the Timberwolves at this point, they're kind of like strapped for what they could do. So they're like, let's just hope it works out this time. But we're going to have to wait and see. For me, I'm not going to overthink it. I was thinking about other players. Even Pascal Siakam at this point, I'm like, knowing Masai, he's not going to make the move. I just don't trust him to make the move. So it's going to be James Harden. I don't want to overthink it. It's going to be James Harden. Where, you ask? I don't know. The Clippers feel like the most logical choice, even though they have a pretty bad package. But he's like, I just don't see this going on for much longer. There's no way you can keep him on the roster with the comments he made about Daryl Morey, and just try to go through training camp in the regular season like everything is A-okay and try to be buddy again. I just don't think that's possible. I feel like that bridge is completely burnt down. James Harden has to be somewhere. I just don't know where it's going to be. I don't know if that means that he's going to get traded to the Trailblazers in the Drew Holiday trade and then maybe flip from the Trailblazers to somewhere else. Who knows? But he has to get traded. I feel like there's just no way around that.
Yeah, man. It's tough, man, because I feel like at the end of the day, that situation is just toxic.
Yeah.
It's just too toxic of a scenario. And it's one of those things where regardless of what Daryl wants, it's inevitable, dude. It's inevitable. I think at the end of the day, the question is just going to come down to who is going to give the best package, because I don't think you can go in a training camp like this. And I wouldn't be surprised. NBA Media Day is less than a week away, boss.
It's on Monday. It's on Monday, which is
crazy. It's a brutal time frame. They're going to have to make something happen soon, because it's been rough. It's been rough. And if they go into the regular season like this, it's only going to get worse.
It's only going to get worse. And this is the same James Harden story we've seen like in the last few teams he's been at. So you know how it's going to be. We're going to see Fatsu James Harden again come make an appearance. You just want to get out of that as soon as you can. So hopefully they can get it done before the training camp starts. Next question. Question number 3. Jay, who is your dark horse MVP candidate? We know who the favorites are, but who is someone you think you could sneak in there and potentially win it?
So who are the typical favorites, right? Jokic, Giannis, Embiid is still up there. I called this 2 years ago and I was wrong. And so now I think I'm going to really lean into it. I think it's Jason Tatum's year, boss. I think it's J-Tay's year. I think that when you think about all of the guys that are in the fray, right? Giannis is in there, but now Damian Lillard is on the team. Joel Embiid, I feel like a lot of people learned through the postseason that the right MVP was staring them right in the face and they just didn't want to acknowledge it. But you've already given Joel Embiid his sympathy MVP, so to be. You've given him the flowers that I think he's been waiting on for seasons now. Jokic, you can make the argument that maybe people will try to re-up and favor him if he has another really strong regular season because of the fact that they missed on him last year. But either way, he's a 2-time MVP already. So Joel Embiid is finally at the top of the mountain. Giannis Antetokounmpo has won an MVP. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, they've won MVPs. LeBron James won MVPs. Nikola Jokic is at the top of the mountain in that regard as well. Jason Tatum has the chance to have a really strong regular season on a team that has a really good chance of being not only the best team in the Eastern Conference from a regular season standpoint, but they have a chance to have the best record in the league.
Yes.
This year. They have a real chance to have a 60-win basketball team this year.
Yeah.
And if Jason Tatum could be a 27, 28 point per game scorer on a team that wins 60+ games this season, they have a real opportunity to do something this year in the championship picture on top of all of that. And Jason Tatum has always kind of been the guy that I think we've always talked about as being a part of that up next group, right? Or that up now group, like talking about guys like Luka Doncic, for example, as well. Yet he always tends to kind of fly under the radar because of some of these other big men who get off to really hot starts. But I think this is finally the year where Jason Tatum breaks through. So I'm going to go with Jason Tatum.
I like that choice. And it does help, like when it comes to the MVP voting, that he's probably going to be on one of the best teams in the league. He's really improved heavily on the defensive end. He's going to have the scoring numbers, solid rebounding and assist numbers as well to back up his name. So I really do like that pick for Dark Horse MVP. For myself, not going to lie, I'm going to go with this guy just because as of late, and when we look at MVP and his stats and everything, not only do you have to be one of the top players in the league, your stat lines are going to have to be ridiculous. We've seen it with Jokic. We've seen it with Embiid. Like Embiid last year averaged like a 30 and like 13 season or something like that to win MVP. So not only like the days where Steph Curry was averaging 24, 7, and 6 is not going to be enough. So you know who has a chance for me that could take that jump and the leap in those numbers? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai, the only thing that might be worrying, of course, is the team success. They're still a super young team. They're still going to figure a lot of things out. But we've seen what Shea can do. He averaged last season like 37-6 with the right people around him, and we've seen that he can be elite on all levels of the game. We've seen in FIBA, we've seen in the NBA now. This guy could low-key have an MVP caliber season in the very near future, and I think that this year could be one of them. He can like average a near triple-double, and we might not even like realize it's happening. He's gonna have a lot of opportunity. This team, if the Thunder like go on and shock a lot of people and take that step that we maybe expect in like a year or two from now, then we have the surprise factor factored into it. You know that Stay's gonna be putting up the stats. You know he's gonna have those like superstar level qualities in terms of getting to the free throw line, getting his teammates involved, being the ultimate leader of that team. I think if the right pieces fall into place, and a lot of pieces do have to fall into place for this to happen, but I do think that SGA, friend of the show, one of the freaking fan favorites over here in the Hit Your Free Throws, has a chance to be an MVP. He's gonna be my dark horse MVP candidate.
I think Shea is big time as a potential candidate because the biggest thing that you also have to factor in when it comes to MVP is did they make top 5 in the ballot the year before? And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did. That's a very good indicator that they're on the upswing as a guy that's going to be in the conversation for MVP for years to come moving forward. Because at the end of the day, right, when it comes to MVP, when it comes to All-Stars, we're always looking to who the next big guy is going to be, right? Who the next big guy or set of guys is going to be in terms of taking that leap into stardom, right? That's why we always get so excited around first-time All-Stars, right? Because for the first time, we see somebody who isn't typically at this event, somebody who is typically not glorified in this way, getting their flowers as having a big-time season and being notarized for it in ways that we've seen the LeBrons, the KDs, the Stephs, the Jimmy Butlers, the Kawhis, the guys we see every single year do this, right? And so Shai Gilgeous-Alexander jumped into MVP conversations last year on a team that just barely missed the postseason last year. Now, they go into another year with a chance to build on that. You get Chet Holmgren this year. You get another year of Jalen Williams this year. You get another year, hopefully, of an improvement from Josh Giddey. There's things to like about the Oklahoma City Thunder in terms of the way they're playing basketball. They're big, switchable. Everybody can ball handle. Everybody can fly around. This kind of up-tempo kind of style that they want to play on both sides of the ball, it's conducive to being really good on an offensive end in terms of the regular season, right? We've seen for example, like the Phoenix Suns with the 7 seconds or less seasons, right? Mm. Those were some of the better teams in the regular season because they were just an outpace you kind of team. And that works really, really well over the course of 82 games. That could be a very effective style for a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder this year. So there's a lot to like about the Oklahoma City Thunder. My only worry about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for example, making the MVP, making a real stretch for MVP, is that I don't think the Oklahoma City Thunder will be a top 4 seed in the Western Conference. Yeah. And we've seen that kind of stuff happen before where a guy outside of the top 4 has won the MVP. But there's not a big enough sample size for it. I think that's probably the biggest part that maybe hurts his case. But I think if he significantly outperforms it and they're at least top 6, it's going to be really hard to keep him out of the contention.
100%. We just know that this guy's just a natural born leader, and he's going to continue to like improve as well as his Oklahoma City Thunder team. Will that jump happen this year? We'll have to wait and see, but if it does happen, you got to mention Shai in the MVP discussions because he will definitely be the leading cause of their success. Jay, next question. What is going to be your go-to League Pass team? So the team that is not going to get many national televised games, but if you're on League Pass, you're going to want to check this team out.
I think the League Pass team... Dude, it's got to be Indiana. I've said this before, but, like, it's got to be Indiana. Tyrese Halliburton. You got Ben Mathurin as a big-time athlete on the outside. Bruce Brown, who can be really good in the open floor. Obi Toppin is like one of the best in transition as a young player in terms of being able to score in transition. Again, I mentioned before, I had Tyrese Halliburton to be able to facilitate it all. For now, they still have Buddy Hield, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of young assets they're able to get outside through a Buddy Hield trade. They're going to play fast. They're going to be up-tempo. They're going to be a team that's going to be scrappy and competitive. I think we saw a lot of that last season. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot to like. Like Jarris Walker, I really like the idea of him in the open floor next to Tyrese Halliburton. Like I said, I think Obi Toppin, he might come up in a conversation we have a little bit later in the 7 questions that we're doing today. But Obi Toppin, I think, is going to be one of the most interesting players to watch his progression this year, because there's always been a kind of cap on Obi Toppin because of how slow and methodical the New York Knicks have always played. Mm-hmm. But what can you do with an Obi Toppin who, A, gets more minutes because he's no longer playing behind Julius Randle, and B, is encouraged to play more up-tempo, free-flowing basketball in the open court next to a guy like Tyrese Halliburton? That's going to be an interesting factor to look at. So I'm going to say Indiana.
Very good choice. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton's already shown that he's going to be able to produce, and then you add that those nice young high flyers to their team. It's going to provide even more highlights. You talked about Benedict Mathurin and his scoring ability. So for a team with only 6 nationally televised games, you're going to want to check out League Pass if you want to see this team, because they are going to be a fun team to watch. Jay, I like to categorize League Pass teams as teams with under 10 games on national TV, because you're not going to see much of them throughout the season. So for me, you're taking it to Indiana. I'm taking it to Orlando. I think it's going to be the Orlando Magic for me. They only have 5 national televised games this year, but they just have so much intriguing young talent when it comes to Paolo, Franz Wagner. We've been able to see the jump that Franz has made in terms of the European games, so who knows how that's going to translate into the NBA season. You still got Wendell Carter Jr., a bunch of young guys. Not to mention they added Malcolm McClung to the roster, so be on the lookout for that as well. But they have such a lot of good young talent, and you want to watch them to see which ones are going to really form into really good NBA players that they're going to be talked about for years to come. You still got the Marco Fultzes in there. You still got Jalen Suggs and a bunch of unknowns that you just want to see what they're going to be able to do. I think they're one of the most intriguing rosters in the league, and they're going to have to make some decisions after this year as to who is going to be there long term after that. And I think it's being able to see them on League Pass is going to be good to follow along in that journey. So I think for me, it's the Orlando Magic is going to be the most League Pass the best League Pass team to watch. You got the athleticism, you got the young talent, and you're going to get highlights from them for sure. So I'm going to go with Orlando.
Well, you already know I'm pretty bullish on Orlando, so that's kind of another reason why I didn't pick them, was because I felt like for me, they become one of the more obvious teams for me to lead with. But they are going to be a team that a lot of people should keep their eyes on. I already made one of my bold predictions for the offseason, is that I believe that the Orlando Magic are going to be a part of the 8 teams that make the postseason this year in the Eastern Conference. That was a pretty interesting thing to lead off with, considering the fact that, there's still a lot to wonder about the Orlando Magic's makeup. But I think that they're a team that is going to be really interesting. And if they can get consistently strong point guard play between Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony, and Anthony Black, I think that the progression from guys like Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, especially like I've said on past podcasts when we were talking about the Orlando Magic's potential canvas to use coming off of or references to use coming off of FIBA play, Paolo Banchero at center was something that was dabbled with a little bit, and there was some interesting things to take away from his time at FIBA playing center that they could also experiment with as well. So there's a lot to like for Orlando, and that's why I think that I agree with you. They're a team that I think people would definitely want to tune a lot into this season, despite the fact that they're not on a ton of nationally televised games.
100%. Even the Pacers team that you mentioned, those are two teams. Again, if you do have League Pass, be on the lookout for them going forward. 3 more questions to go. Let's move on to the next one. Jay, which player will take the biggest leap this year in their production?
So I kind of hinted to this a little bit earlier, and this is kind of it depends on who you are, but like this is just how I feel about it. I think that Obi Toppin is finally going to get his shot, bro. I think this is finally the time. We've seen significant production from him, right? A lot of Knicks fans were even clamoring, get Toppin in the starting lineup. I'm tired of Julius Randle, right? Think about that. We're talking about an all-star forward, an all-NBA forward, whether by hook or crook, an all-NBA forward in Julius Randle is being put on the chopping block by New York Knicks fans in favor of Obi Toppin. Because let's be honest, don't get me wrong, Julius Randle has been a very productive player, but it should not be disregarded how effective Obi Toppin was when he got significant minutes on the New York Knicks. And now he's got a free opportunity as a member of the Indiana Pacers, not only to potentially play much more than he already does, or as he already did as a member of the New York Knicks, but he gets to do it in an environment that's much more conducive to him being successful. Now, let me step away from the Indiana Pacers because that is a little bit of a whack pick considering I've already talked about Indiana a little bit. The team and the guy that I'm the most interested in terms of making a real breakout this year, though, is Jordan Poole. It's been said plenty. There's some guys that when they end up in a new opportunity, a la Obi Toppin, like I mentioned beforehand, where when they are given more to work with, the studio space opens up. We get to see the full capacity of their game, right? Yeah. This is going to be a Washington Wizards team that is going to want to put butts in seats because they're going to want to just be a fun, scrappy team during the regular season. They're going to want to see Bilal Coulibaly continue to develop, Deni Avdija continue to grow into a big-time forward. But this team is going to be built around Tyus Jones facilitating the ball to Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, right? The double light-skinned killer combo in Washington is going to be one of the most interesting duos in the NBA to watch this season. And Jordan Poole with more frequency on ball, this is a guy who I think could take a really significant leap. This is one of those dudes where when you say, if you gave him the ball more, could he become an all-star caliber player? I think the answer is yes. And I think that when you think about 2 seasons ago, he was a pivotal piece to the Golden State Warriors making that championship run. Then last offseason, the punch heard round the world happens, and he has one of the most down NBA years, right? One of the biggest drop-offs from year to year that we've seen from a young player in quite a long time, right? You were arguably the second most important player, third most important player on a championship season 2 years ago. Now you're being thrown in trade rumors and being seen as a liability a year later. Now you're shipped off to Washington. You go all the way from the West Coast, all the way over to the furthest end, down to the East Coast, over to the East Coast for the Washington Wizards. Jordan Poole is probably one of those guys during the season playing with the biggest chip on his shoulder going into the 2023-24 season. And he's gone to the perfect team to give him an opportunity to unleash a little bit of that frustration.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a show to watch. Whether it's a good show or a bad show, we're gonna have to wait and see until the regular season comes. I mean, he's gonna get all the opportunities in the world. He's like, I've heard in a podcast with Andre Iguodala, he talked about how Jordan Poole felt like he shouldn't have to be held back from the Golden State Warriors because they had Steph, because they had Clay and those type of players. Well, it's just him and Kuzma going to be taking all the shots in the world. So he might average like 22, 23 shots per game for all we know. If they prove to be like, good percentages, good numbers, then Jordan Poole for sure could take the next step, 100%. But we'll have to wait and see. And it's going to be interesting to see how teams end up defending this Washington Wizards team when you know that a good majority of possessions are going to go through Jordan Poole. For me, my pick over here, is going to be someone who is close to home and someone who actually impressed me a lot during the FIBA games. I think it's going to be RJ Barrett. I think RJ Barrett is going to be one to take a very big leap. He's been kind of like meddling around the 20-point per game averages over the last, like, his first 4 years of his career. And I think he got put a lot of pressure on by New York Knicks fans because it's New York, and plus they weren't able to get Zion in the first place, and then they didn't trade RJ Barrett for Donovan Mitchell, which all of Knicks fans wanted. So I think that this medal that he won with Canada and the production he made is going to instill him to some more confidence in his game and make him more aggressive come this NBA season. I could see him averaging, close to like a 24, 25 point per game season. Him beside Julius Randle has potential to be a really good duo. We haven't really seen the results so far. And Julius Randle has more like outperformed RJ Barrett in most of the seasons they played together. But I think this is the season that RJ Barrett is gonna be able to take the next step. And I think that we talk about the FIBA rub with Team USA and them coming back and having this newfound confidence, this newfound ability that they brought over from the international game. I think RJ Barrett's gonna be like that for the New York Knicks, coming from Team Canada and taking down the US as well. I'm gonna have RJ Barrett. Him, Jalen Brunson, and Julius Randle could be one of the best big threes if they can live up to the potential that they all have. And I think that RJ Barrett might be able to take that next step this year. So give me RJ.
I think RJ Barrett's a big one. I think also you have to think about it from this perspective, right? This team can only get but so much better with the fact that they pretty much stood pat, right? I mean, there weren't too many more adjustments to this squad. They brought in Dante DiVincenzo. They re-upped on Josh Hart. Obviously, Brunson and Julius Randle are still there. There's still there's not a ton of upside swings left on this roster. It's a lot of guys who are who they are, and they're really good at being themselves, but there's not a ton of upside swings left to really improve this roster in any way. The only way left really is through the internal development from guys like Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett. But RJ Barrett, most importantly, because he plays a significant position of need, playing between the 2 and the 3, but a lot of times ending up at that 3 spot, right? Mm-hmm. So his upside and his ability to continue to grow as a defender, as a two-way player in general, if RJ Barrett can become like an Andrew Wiggins kind of player for this team, he instantly makes this team much better than they already are, just by that front alone. If he can be a guy who's a consistent 18, 5 and 3, or consistent 18 and 6 rebounds, and be at least an above average defender, that skyrockets the championship value of a team like the New York Knicks. So there's a lot riding on a guy like him continuing to develop.
Yeah, for sure. And the contract is finally going to kick in this year. So this is the first year they're going to be paying him loads of money. Let's see if he's going to be able to actually live up to that and prove Knicks fans wrong for being able to choose, for the front office choosing him over someone like a Donovan Mitchell. 2 more questions to go. I'm gonna put this one to you, Jay, as well. Don't put too much stock on blank player.
Don't put too much stock in blank player. Let's talk about it like this. I'm going to actually pick the guy that was referenced a lot earlier on when we were talking about NBA trades. Don't put a lot of stock into Tyler Hero. I think that was only further proven through the fact that Tyler Hero was not a big enough chip to make the Portland Trailblazers feel like it was worth throwing Damian Lillard to the Miami Heat. I think another thing that should be taken into consideration is that Tyler Hero and players like Tyler Hero, that includes Jordan Poole, right? That includes Tyrese Maxey, guys of these caliber, they have a ceiling on them in terms of not only how they are viewed across the league in terms of their talent, but how they are viewed across the league in terms of them as assets. Yeah. So whether it's for the Miami Heat or for someone else, I'm not super big on Tyler Hero stock. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care what he did in the bubble on their run to the championship or on the run to the finals a couple seasons ago. I don't care about the fact that he's one of the better 6 men in the NBA. I don't care about those things. He's a guy that I feel like has a legitimate ceiling on him, and he can be exciting for a handful of games to watch play at a high level, but he's not a guy that I feel like is worth committing significant draft capital to go out and go get. He's not a guy that I think is worth moving off from a superstar player and saying, oh, yes, we're acquiring young assets and part of it is Tyler Hero. I don't see him as a guy who can be an anchor as part of a big time trade that facilitates a superstar to a new team. And so, yeah, I'm not big on Tyler Hero stock at all.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, we talked about John Collins, we talked about Miles Turner, and like Tyler Hero in that same bracket. If teams really did value them that much, then there would have been like more like bigger trade packages. There would have been like a better want for these players, but it feels like there hasn't been. So I think like if like NBA GMs are looking at this, maybe us as fans should maybe like lower expectations as well. These are the guys in the front office. These are the ones who are scouting them heavily throughout the season, throughout these last couple of years. Maybe we do have too much stock in Tyler Hero. And look, I'm hoping for the best for him. I really hope he does like prove like Miami wrong and like actually goes off this year and like makes them like regret, maybe potentially trading for Damian Lillard. But if it's been taking so long to get him off this roster, that might be saying a lot. So I do that Tyler Hero pick is definitely good. For me, this is coming off once again, FIBA standards. Let's not put too much stock into Dennis Schroeder and back in the NBA, especially us Raptor fans. I want to believe in Dennis Schroeder. I want to believe that him playing with his former coach in Atlanta and our new guy and our new coach as well would be great for him. But at the end of the day, it's Dennis Schroeder has shown us like kind of like what he is in the NBA, and sure he could do great on the international stage and great for him. If he like, he's just not going to really do that in our roster. It doesn't help that we don't have the spacing. He's going to be one of our best 3-point shooters, even though he is a horrendous 3-point shooter as well. I just think that his play style, although is effective for some teams, is not really starting point guard caliber, and that's why he hasn't really been getting the contracts that he has been desiring for the past couple of years. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But after that FIBA World Cup MVP performance, coming back to the NBA, coming back to my Toronto Raptors, warning Raptor fans and NBA fans in general, do not put too much stock into Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Very big time summer for a guy like Dennis Schroeder, who kind of needed to recover after being like one of the biggest memes of the last offseason. Not this past offseason, but the season before, the offseason before. Pretty big fall from grace financially, but also just in terms of where he stands in the league. I think this is a good place in Toronto for him to be able to kind of recover some of his much needed stock in the NBA. But again, like you mentioned beforehand, this isn't gonna like his FIBA successes aren't gonna like turn him into like a top 15 point guard all of a sudden or anything like that.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on to the final question of the 21, and of course we're going to continue this on for the next couple of weeks. We're going to enough on a fun one. Jay, in terms of an off the court, this does not have to do on the court, but off the court, who do you think is going to be the most fun duo to follow along off the court? We had Bobby and Toby. We've had in the past, Jordan Poole and like Steph Curry like off the court doing their thing at times. Who do you think is gonna be the most fun off the court duo this season?
See, that one's tricky because we were talking about what they do off the court.
Maybe it's the mix of personalities. Maybe it's the their kind of the way that they carry themselves. But what do you think is gonna be the most fun duo?
Share yours. I'm gonna think about that one a little bit more.
Okay. For me, I think like a nice dynamic to see this season is from my own Toronto Raptors, Scotty Barnes and Grady Dick. If you've seen already on his social media, Grady Dick has like a really big personality. He's been doing a lot of ads for certain companies already, and Scotty Barnes over here in Toronto, he's already like, I swear he like is on like 5 or 6 commercials over here on repeat. So you're gonna see them off the court. You're gonna see their fun-loving personalities over there. I think they're gonna have so many fun just like after the game like interview moments where they're interrupting each other. They're gonna have some like funny responses here and there. I think they're gonna develop a really good friendship early on, and I think it's gonna provide for some of the great for the best content off the court. So give me Grady Dick and Scotty Barnes.
Okay, I think the duo I'm gonna go with is give me Victor Wembanyama and Jeremy Sohan for the San Antonio Spurs. So far this offseason, I mean, look, Jeremy Sohan already has this man Victor Wembanyama changing his hair, right? He's already got him indoctrinated into the Dennis Rodman school of hair dye, right?
Yeah.
So then you throw on top of that if you look on social media when it comes to either Victor or Jeremy, kind of wherever Victor has been, Jeremy has been either in the video or somewhere nearby. These guys are clearly kind of locked in. That's going to be super huge considering the fact that they're going to play next to each other probably a lot on the floor this year. So it's really good to think about it in terms of them building up their rapport. It seems like they're already getting along really well. And I could see Jeremy Sohan being a very influential part of helping Victor not only kind of integrate himself into like NBA basketball, but also to a certain extent into American culture, even like to an extent as well. So there's a lot to kind of watch as we watch Wemby continue to grow. I think it'll be interesting to see how Jeremy Sohan kind of contributes to that, but also in general, just their rapport on and off the floor kind of mattering a lot to like how Vic grows as a guy who's now going to be more of an American citizen to an extent.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, those are the first 7 questions. Again, the next couple of weeks, we're going to go through 7 more next week and 7 more after that. And that's going to be a way for us to preview the NBA season. But also, before we move on very quickly, Jay, we're going to be doing this thing. I already have one of your takes down. You said that the Orlando Magic is going to be a top 8 team in the East this year. We're going to have some bulletin board material that we're going to be following on for the rest of the season. But we're going to have a segment here. We're going to try to give our biggest hot take for this NBA season. We're going to have 6 in total coming up in these first 3 previews. And we're going to kind of have them on the board and see how they all – let's see if they age well. We're going to see if they age well for sure. So, Jay, one hot take that you have for this NBA season, go.
I mentioned this earlier on that I'm significantly low on this team, and to the point that I haven't believed in them in the past and they've proved me wrong. But I feel like this is the time to finally pull the trigger. I think the Miami Heat aren't going to make the playoffs at all this year.
Oh.
Not 8th, not 7th, not at all. I think that this is a team, maybe they make the play-in tournament because of the fact that at the end of the day, the Eastern Conference, top to bottom, isn't the strongest in the world. But I think this is a team that does not make the top 8 come postseason time. I just don't see it.
Oh boy, that's gonna ruffle definitely some feathers. And you know what? Hey, look, if there's some aftermath to this trade and there's gonna be some infighting, you'll see why. Because they definitely like kind of played with their food too much, and now they're gonna kind of have to face the consequences. You know what? The last week I kind of made my own little hot take as well. I said that Keontae George is gonna have a great rookie season to start off with. So we'll add some bulletin board material. But for me, this year, I'm going to tell you, Jay, that the Memphis Grizzlies are going to finish atop of the West. I think they're going to finish as the number 1 seed in the West. And I know that Ja Morant is not going to be there for the first 25 games. But we've seen that with the right coaching, and Taylor Jenkins is one of the elite coaches in this league. They have this roster now. They have the point guard depth now. They're adding Marcus Smart to be as part of the rotation now. I think this team is gonna stay afloat. They're gonna have Ja back. They're gonna have their leader back, and I think they're gonna be more disciplined now coming this regular season with the additions, like I mentioned in the past, Derrick Rose. You have Steven Adams in the locker room, Marcus Smart. These guys are gonna get these young dudes right, and I think it's gonna result to more wins, a lot more mature team, and I think that even with Ja Morant gone for the first 25 games or so, that they're gonna still be near the top of the West, and I have them being the number 1 seed. So give me the Memphis Grizzlies as the number 1 seed out West.
That's big time. I'm not gonna lie. Considering the Ja Morant suspension, that's definitely gonna be one to track.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm gonna call it. You know what I'm gonna call this? I'm gonna call this bulletin board material. Whenever we have some sort of hot take, we're gonna have it here. Let's see if they're gonna be able to age well this upcoming season. So yeah, if you have any of those as well, let us know down in the comment section below. We are moving a little bit long, but we're still going to power through with these last 2 segments. We have our staples here. in the NBA draft, and we have the quiz going up, and we're going to start off with the NBA draft. And today, it's going to be pretty simple. Dame gets traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is cementing himself as a Milwaukee legend, not only for doing what he's done so far with the Milwaukee Bucks, but being able to keep this Milwaukee Bucks front office accountable and trying to make sure they are competing for years to come. He is a legend for that as well. So in this draft, you know how it goes. Me and Jay, we're going to do Serpentine. He goes the first pick, and I get the next 2 picks, so on and so forth. But we're going to be choosing from a pool of the best Bucks players of all time. Now, Jay, we talked about this before, and the caveat, we're only taking their Milwaukee Buck careers. Their best selves as a Milwaukee Buck. So we're not going to be taking Damian Lillard in this draft because he hasn't played a minute for the Milwaukee Bucks. We don't know how he is with the Milwaukee Bucks. But they have a long tenured history. We have a lot of guys to choose from. Jay, how are you feeling about this draft?
I feel good, man. It's actually a pretty good pool of guys to pull from. You might not think of, Milwaukee All-Stars too much, but they've had some dudes. If you get the Milwaukee version of a handful of guys, can't be too upset about it.
100%. And Jay, you got the first pick of this draft, so I'm going to throw it over to you. Who are you going to take with that first pick?
Yeah, man. My main thing is I don't want to be super conventional. So this team is going to be fun to play around with. But what I know I'm not going to play around with is my first overall pick. Give me Giannis Antetokounmpo, man.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get that out the way, man.
I mean, sometimes, with some teams, you could maybe, make some arguments as well. But Giannis is clearly the best player in this franchise's history. Multiple-time MVP winner, NBA champion. I don't hate that pick whatsoever. And then I think for the same number 2 overall pick, I'm not going to overthink it. Give me Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Or back in the day when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks, Lou Alcindor. I think that this, I think this is where we see prime Kareem, multiple-time MVP. He brought the Milwaukee Bucks their first ever championship. So I'm going to have him over there at my center position. I think that's an easy pick over there. And you know what? Let's bring back the 70s. Let's show some love to the 70s because I'm going to pair him with the point guard that he had at that time, Oscar Robertson. Mr. Triple-Double. We got some size in the perimeter. We got one of the best defensive bigs of all time in Kareem. So give me Oscar Robertson at the point guard position. We're getting all the stats, man. We are getting all of them.
Yeah, man. Those definitely are the strongest big 2 you can get out of Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So now we got to respond accordingly. All right. We already have Giannis. Dude, I'm locking up. Yeah. First off, I'm going to take Sidney Moncrief. And I'm going to put him at I'm going to put Sidney Moncrief at my 3 here.
Yeah. Okay.
And then at my 2, give me my boy, a.k.a. Jesus Shuttlesworth. Give me Ray Allen at the 2 spot.
Good choices. Look, man, people forget, but Ray Allen was a dog in Milwaukee. And not only did he have the 3-point shot, he had the athleticism back in the day over there. Dunk contest participant. This guy had some buddies back in the day. You get, potentially the best version of Ray Allen with the shooting and the athleticism, so that is definitely a really good pick. Next 2 picks for me, I gotta go with, honestly, one of my all-time favorite players, some guy who I used to watch a lot when I was really young, and he had one of the, a very unique release, but he is someone who probably, if he was in today's NBA, would be absolutely amazing. And I mentioned him on the pause before. I'm going to show him here again. Give me Michael Redd at my 2, man. Give me Michael.
Oh, man, that's good.
Michael Redd, the left-handed shooter. This guy had a freaking slingshot bring it all the way back to the back of his head. But, man, this guy was an absolute baller back in the day. Give me him at my 2 position. I should go a little bit current, and I will go a little bit current with my next pick. Give me Chris Middleton. I'm gonna be pretty simple here, but give me Chris Middleton, someone who's gonna shoot the ball very well. At his prime, was a really decent defender over there, and he's just gonna be a great catch and shoot guy, which we don't have many. I mean, we're gonna have great shooters now with him and Michael Redd on the court. So give me Chris Middleton. He's gonna run my 3.
Man, he's got Chris Middleton. That's tough. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bump my boy Giannis down to the 5 because we need somebody to be able to hang out with Lou Alcindor at that 5 spot. So I'm gonna put Giannis at the 5. Give me big man Vin Baker for my 4 spot.
Ooh, very nice. I mean, he was unspoken a lot from like the late 90s, early 2000s, but this guy was a baller.
Yeah, low-key a bucket for a little while with his time with the Bucks. I think he averaged like around 18 points or so as a part of the Bucks franchise. He was an all-star a couple of times while he was there as well. Man, you got the Michael Redd pick though. That was that one. That was that one I was waiting on. You know what? Let's go with Mr. ET himself at the point guard position. Give me Sam Cassell, man.
Oh, no. He was good, man. Sam Cassell was a damn good player back in the day, and he was definitely had his moments there with the Milwaukee Bucks. I like that pick over there at your point guard position. I get the final pick of this draft, and you talked about moving Giannis to the 5. I'm going to punish you for that because we're going to go super big over here. Give
Oh,
me at my
jeez.
power forward position. You know this guy's going to shoot threes in the current day. Let me get another current man and Brook Lopez.
Oh man, I was waiting for it.
We're
Jeez.
gonna have 2 7-footers up front, but don't worry, these guys are gonna absolutely like deny everything at the rim. Giannis is gonna have an absolute nightmare down there, and don't worry. And when it comes to spacing the floor, Milwaukee Bucks Brook Lopez, one of the best shooting bigs in the league. So I'm gonna take Brook Lopez
Yeah.
and put him in my 4. He's gonna complete my lineup. Jay, let me hear your all-time Bucks draft.
All right, so my all-time Bucks draft puts Sam Cassell at the 1, Ray Allen at the 2, Sidney Moncrief at the 3, Vin Baker at the 4, and then Giannis Antetokounmpo at my 5 spot.
Very nice. It's a good mix of passive present. I really do like your team over there. For myself, I got the Big O at the 1, got Michael Redd at the 2. At the 3, we got Money Middleton, Chris. We got Brook Lopez at the 4, and Mr. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, aka Lou Alcindor, there at the 5. I don't know, man. I really like my team. I really do. Yeah, and if you wanted to take a vote on who has a better team in this one, let us know down below. Of course, we're gonna have to leave your vote. Who drafted the better all-time Bucks team? But now we have moved to the final segment of the show, and it is time for the NBA quiz. I'm gonna bring back we're gonna bring back a classic one because we haven't done this in a while. Jay,
Okay.
I'm gonna be giving you the teams of the player, and you're gonna have to guess which player.
Okay.
We are bringing this back. We haven't done this in a minute. But the theme of this one, Jay, and this is gonna narrow down a lot for you. These are
All
gonna be
right.
guys that have retired, but retired in like the 2000s era. So they haven't been out the league for too long, but they also haven't been in the league in a minute. So they retired around like the kind of 2000s, like early 2010s era. So it's kind of like the time that we were watching as a kid. So we're gonna go with these type of players.
Oh, wait.
So
Okay.
we're gonna have to go with it. I had 5 lined up,
All
but
right.
maybe I'll save some for next week as well. But we're going to go for maybe we'll go for 2 or 3. Let's see how this goes for you. Let's see how quick you can do this. So Jay,
Okay.
first player. Yeah, I'll go with him. I'll go with him to start with. The first team I'm going to give you, the Beijing Ducks. The
What?
the Beijing Ducks as his first team. And then we're gonna bring this back to series. We're gonna come back swinging. We're gonna go with the Beijing Ducks.
What the heck? And these players are all retired. Every player is retired.
At this point, they're all retired. Yeah.
Oh man, that's what makes it kind of hard. What the heck?
If you want to skip forward, you can skip forward. But if you have a
Skip forward one team.
okay, let's see. Here's the next team I'm gonna give you. The Orlando Magic.
The Orlando Magic. What the heck? Beijing Ducks is just so weird because the first guy I thought of was like Stephon Marbury or something. But like, I know he played overseas, but like, no.
No, not.
Orlando Magic? What the heck? The minute you said retired, I was like, oh man, that makes it a lot more difficult because I gotta think of guys I don't normally see like that. I guess skip to the next team. Orlando Magic isn't kicking either.
Right. Next team. The New York Knicks.
Yeah, see, that's what really made me think that, like, what the heck?
You know what? This guy was definitely a damn good player back in his day, though. I do remember him.
Well, back in his day is where it gets difficult. What the heck? I'm sorry, but like Beijing Ducks is just lingering. Like that's just crazy. I have no clue. I guess we gotta go another team.
Okay, this might give it away, but we'll go with it anyway. The Vancouver Grizzlies. The Vancouver Grizzlies.
Mike Bibby?
Not Mike Bibby. He did play for the Knicks for a bit. I don't know if he played overseas, but it is not Mike Bibby.
Sharif?
It's not Sharif. It's not Sharif. But I'll give you the last team. The Houston Rockets. So remember, this is the most known team that this guy's played for.
The Houston Rockets is his most notable team.
Yeah.
But he also played for the Knicks, the Magic. What the heck? And he's retired. That's the part that's killing me with this. And he played for Vancouver.
I'll give you a hint. This man retired in 2010.
What? Oh man.
I guess another way you can name the theme of this quiz is the streets won't forget these players. The streets won't. Like they might be
the
like
streets are forgetting right now because I'm usually good at this stuff. What the heck?
You have a final guess?
Jeez, man. The fact that it's not Stephon Marbury is really killing me here. Is this like Steve Francis?
It is Steve Francis.
Oh man, I pulled that out of nowhere. Oh my gosh.
It was Steve Francis. I picked Steve Francis. I mean, technically he didn't play a game for the Vancouver Grizzlies, but he requested a trade the minute he got drafted.
Oh, see what the heck? The minute I heard Vancouver, I was like, what?
Hey, look, I thought that's gonna give it away because he had that whole thing where the minute he got drafted, he's like, nah, I'm not playing in Vancouver. Trade me away from this.
Oh man, I didn't factor that in because I didn't think he did a single dribble for Vancouver. So I was like, wait, we're counting him? Like, what the heck?
Hey, he got drafted by that, so I'm including them on this list.
Clutched it. Let's go.
You're clutched now. God. Let's get it. So Jesus. Steve Francis. All right. Next player. Right.
See if it gets better from here.
Okay. First up, the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors.
Let's just try Tracy McGrady.
Not Tracy McGrady. Next team, the Indiana Pacers.
Oh gosh. Jan Mahimi?
Not Jan Mahimi. You're both thinking that deep. Holy! If I went with Jan Mahimi, I would feel so mean. Oh my god.
I don't know, bro.
I bet. Oh my gosh! If I went down to Jan Mahimi, I'd feel so mean. That's what made you say that would go with Jan Mahimi. All right.
I hope they both. I hope he did play for both of those teams.
No, he didn't play for the Raptors. He didn't play for the Raptors. He played for the Pacers.
He didn't? Oh, okay. I was gonna say. Right. I know he played with the Pacers.
All right. Next team. Speaking of Jan Mahimi, he did play for this team though. The Dallas Mavericks.
Okay, so he's played for Dallas, Indiana, And what was the other team?
Toronto.
Toronto, Dallas, Indiana, Toronto. Oh man, here I go with another deep cut because I was about to say Deshaun Stevenson, but like that's just like such a deep cut.
Look, man, these players were like solid back in the day. I told you. I mean, these are like streets won't forget. These are guys that we're gonna like remember. If you grew up in this area, you guys are gonna know them.
If it weren't for Toronto so far, it'd be Monte Ellis. Like that would be a good one. But because of Toronto,
Yeah,
it's kind of tricky. Okay, one more team, if there's any more.
The New Orleans Hornets.
Ooh.
New Orleans Hornets.
Ooh, that's a good one. What the heck?
I know if I give you the last team, you're gonna get it instantly, but yeah, I'm gonna go with the New Orleans Hornets.
Ooh, wow, this is a good one. Tyson Chandler? No, he didn't play for Indiana.
I don't mind that pick, but it's not Tyson Chandler. But I will give you the last team.
Ooh.
The Sacramento Kings.
Sacramento Kings. Oh man. Not Tyreek. Not Vlade. I'm trying to think of just Sacramento Kings players, and then I kind of can just work from there. Boogie's still hanging around. It's not Chris Webber because he didn't say Warriors.
This guy's a one-time champion. This guy, I think, finished top 5 MVP voting like either once or twice in his career.
Whoa, he was like legit. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of Kings people. Like,
you named some guys that were part of his team, and he was part of a pretty damn good team.
You already said Mike Bibby. Oh my gosh, this is gonna kill me. You said okay, wait. You said one-time champ too. Yeah. Let's go through the teams one more time for me real quick.
Okay, so the Raptors, Pacers, Hornets, Dallas, and Sacramento.
Peja.
It is Peja Stojakovic.
Oh, clutched it. Oh my gosh, let's go.
Peja Stojakovic.
Oh my
Won a championship in his last season as a basketball player with the Dallas Mavericks. He was that guy back in the day. He was that guy. Absolutely love Peja Stojakovic.
Woo!
I know I had you
like OGs will know.
The OGs will know my guy, Peja Stojakovic. All right, I'm gonna give you one last player to end off this video. First team, we're gonna go with the Guangdong Southern Tigers.
What the hell? Okay. Guangdong.
Southern Tigers.
Here we go with this again. And this isn't Stephon Marbury.
This is not Stephon Marbury. I can get you to the next player. I don't think that's probably not gonna be much help to you. I'll move on to the next one. All right. The Los Angeles Lakers.
Okay, well, Dwight Howard's still in the league, so until further notice, like,
yeah,
still, leaving that one in there.
Los Angeles Lakers.
See, the thing is, this isn't like the name the players thing where I just can go for deep cuts. Like, you're looking at guys that are like legitimately really good. So now I have to take them in consideration.
But hey, if I put the Lakers this early, it probably might be a deep cut Laker. Probably a deep cut Laker. You want the next team?
Because I was gonna say something super random like Jody Meeks.
Not Jody Meeks, but I will give you the next player.
Yeah.
The next team. The Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs.
Oh my gosh, is this the? No, I can't ask that because then you'll technically use another team if I ask that question. Oh my gosh, I know his name. He's so overpaid. It's ridiculous. Or he was so overpaid. It was ridiculous. Okay, hold on. I gotta look. If I can get it, if I can look him up for his name, that's all I'm doing this for. Cavs.
I think I know who you're talking about, and I don't think you're right. I'll tell you.
I don't think I'm right either. And no, I'm not saying Ilgauskas. It's somebody else. It's somebody else. But
I think Mozgov.
It's Mozgov. That was the one I was thinking of.
Okay, it's not Timothy. Okay. It's not Timothy Mozgov.
Okay, it's not Timothy Mozgov. Okay, cool. That was the guy.
Okay, when you said overpaid, I was like, okay, now I knew exactly.
Yeah, that was the only way I could put 2 and 2 together. So okay, so I guess I'm gonna need another team.
Okay,
that was the guy.
Frickin' legend, the first guy who got a deal in 2016 during the huge TV deal.
Jesus Christ. Oh
Next team though, the Utah Jazz. Which is funnily enough, Timothy Mozgov did play for them as well.
Right. That's why I'm like, are you serious right now? Oh my gosh. What? Okay, wait. What 3 teams did he play for?
Okay, I won't even mention the Chinese team, but I won't show the 3 NBA ones.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that because I don't know what the heck to do with
Lakers, Cavs, and Utah.
What? Man, if that ain't Timothy Mozgov, who is it, man? Are you serious? Oh my gosh.
Don't think that deep, bro. Don't think that deep. Remember, these guys were actually good.
Al Jefferson?
Not Al Jefferson.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Next team. Final team. And Jay, this is for you. The Chicago Bulls.
Dang. Oh my God. Okay, now I gotta get it right. You gotta give me like 2 tries, but I gotta get it right now that I know he's a Bull. Oh my gosh.
Chicago Bulls.
What? Oh my gosh. He played for the Bulls, the Jazz. I gotta put all these teams together. Go through the teams one more time. The Bulls, the Jazz.
I can't wait till you realize who this is. I know you're gonna figure it out. Can't wait till you realize who this is.
Name the 4 teams one more time for me, real quick.
Lakers, Cavs, Utah, Chicago.
TV, no the hell you did not just do that. Oh my gosh. TV, let's end the podcast now. This is Boozer the Loser. Oh my God, you're a sick individual, dude. His best time was with Utah. You're a sick individual. Oh my gosh. This is Boozer. Oh my gosh.
Carlos Boozer.
Yo. Bro, the minute you said Chicago Bulls, I had to get in my bag. And I was like, wait a minute. But then that's why I was like, please name the teams one more time. Because ain't no way. And I was like, Utah? Okay. Bulls? Okay. Then I started thinking Lakers. And I was like, was it the Lakers era when he had like the insane like spray paint?
No, that was
like hairline?
That was the end of the Bulls era. That's the end of the Bulls.
That was the end of the Bulls era? Okay.
He went fully bald. He went fully bald for the Lakers.
Okay, so then there was that. Man, Guang Dog, I wasn't getting that. I ain't gonna lie.
He ended his career.
What?
And he ended his career there. You got to. I had to sneak in Boozer the Loser one last time at the end of this episode.
The Loser, man. Holy cow.
That was for you specifically. That was just.
That's crazy.
All right.
That's crazy.
Love these 7 quizzes. I know we went super long, but that was a great way to end it. Let us know down below what other quizzes you want to see on the podcast. But we've reached the end of another fantastic episode we had a lot of stuff to catch up on, man. We went super long on this one, but the Dame trade season preview, you know this stuff was going to be action-packed. We're going to come back next week, and we're going to get more into the season preview stuff. But, Jay, the end of the episode, what do you have to tell these beautiful people?
Hey, man, leave it up to TV to help me out in terms of just continuing to make my brain click for these dang quizzes, dude. But for everybody who subscribed, thank you to you guys. It's only going to get better once the NBA season starts. We say this every single episode. But the NBA season is around the corner. Media day starts next week. It's only going to give us that much more to talk about. And we've got a ton on the docket for you guys once the year starts. Me and TV have been grinding all summer to finally get to this point, and we are super excited about what we have in front of us for this NBA season. First full NBA season of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. So become very accustomed to hearing our voice, because there's going to be a lot that's changing. There's going to be a lot more content coming out, and I'm really enjoying every second of the process so far.
100%, and we're going to be hitting you guys with the weekly NBA podcast for the remainder of this offseason, and you might see even more of us come to regular season, because you know there's going to be a lot more to talk about. So yeah, just continue to show your support in any way possible. We really do appreciate you, especially in our individual pages, which will be revived soon, especially with the daily NBA picks counts coming back soon. So you're going to be able to check those out. And just try to support this podcast in any way possible. YouTube, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'd be really appreciated. Any of the social media networks, TikTok and Instagram for the best daily content. I remember we're going to have the rest of the series coming out throughout this week and next week. So be on the lookout for the rest of the NBA 2K universe. And of course, if you're listening on any on the podcast networks, make sure you like, if you subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. But we've reached another fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Take it easy, guys. Peace.
Peace.